Peter Jackson's Star Wars: Jedi subtitled Survivor, the official game of the official motion picture, is not a well-named game, and worse, not a game that feels well at all. The first one was a little rough around the edges, but Cal had a boyish appeal. Unfortunately, the sequel lacks any of Fallen Order's charm, and an older Cal miserably flits between careers: a gardener, a prospector, a park ranger, a Pokemon trainer, and occasionally a Jedi rebel, without ever finding his footing. You see, Jedi Survivor is chock full of gameplay systems, minigames, and gimmicks, but they're more shallow than an Ewok's piss stream. They all feel loosely stitched onto the game and never form a cohesive whole, which is par for the course for the Star Wars franchise, I suppose. Subtle dig, audience laughter, slow fade into title sequence.
He's a devil, he's a devil, he's a devil in his own hometown.
So the game opens with you staging a break-in with your crew, except if you played the first game, you'll notice that your crew aren't the teammates from the prequel, whom you spent half the game collecting like Happy Meal prices at select participating McDonald's across the galaxy. They've been replaced by cliched characters such as the twins, guy who will definitely betray you, and guy whose death was written first and character was reverse engineered second for a lazy attempt at stakes. But it seems even the writers had the decency to acknowledge a bad hand when they dealt you one, because most of them are killed off at the conclusion of the tutorial mission.
Good, because I haven't written it yet. But
Don't take that as a good sign for the rest of the story though. It's not a compliment to your writing when you're being congratulated for removing the poorly written characters early. You wouldn't pin a war medal on Dooku for poisoning Sidious in the Revenge of the Sith. It just means you read the writing on the wall. Anyway, you make plans with the one surviving member of the B team to regroup elsewhere, a backwater planet where one of your old crewmates from the prequel's A team has retired. Obviously, said A-team member rejoins the rebellion effort because power of friendship, family, yada yada, but the writers realize that hollow fellowship does not a plot make. So you also happen to find a MacGuffin that reveals the undulating abyss in the sky leads to a safe haven planet for the Jedi, Tana lore. Plot contrivance, empty NPC relationships, full steam ahead. Now it's off to rally the rest of your old crew. For some reason, the game sort of handwaves away why the group split up in the first place. At one point, the MacGuffin thingamabob needs to do some MacGuffin thingamajigs, one on the planet you just came from and another on a new planet. You can do this in either order, and it's always a bad indicator for the quality of your story when two chunks of it can be swapped chronologically without affecting the plot at all.
I don't like it here.
You don't have to be afraid.
Eventually, your crew bands together and ends up being you, a human man, B-Team Human Man who replaces the prequel's A-Team Human Woman, A-Team Humanoid Goth Woman, and A-Team Humanoid with 2 extra arms. And I have to say, I dislike the game's trope of relegating the truly wacky aliens to side character status. The cantina serves as the hub area where you send every Tom, Dick, and Max Rebo you find awkwardly existing in the wild. I don't know about you, but if I was stranded, I'd be grateful to any rescuers, but I wouldn't take their advice on professional relocation without missing a beat. Half the NPCs in the cantina had more personality than your own crew. I liked the Scottish shrimp pirate, the spiritual Krogan, the shady Australian bounty hunter, the quirky antique droid. Hell, the game master of the holotactics deck builder could have stayed silent the entire game and still looked more interesting than what the A and B team were serving. You could replace at least one of your crewmates, the four-armed pilot, with an AI, and the story wouldn't change one fucking bit. For goodness sake, you're set in space, Star Wars. Let me have a crew full of Jabba the Hutts, Wookiees, and Yodas. What's the point of being a space opera if most of the cast is going to look like a Joe Schmo from down the block? The freaks, excuse my space racism, should be the main focus, and humanoids should be few and far between. I can empathize with the giant snail with eyes so large and buggy they'd put manga artists to shame. I can't empathize with stoic hue-shifted humanoid 437. And to be clear, I'm not just advocating for aliens because of my childish need to be amused. Realistic human expressions are harder to pull off because they're more complex and nuanced, and developers like Naughty Dog have set a high standard. On the other hand, alien characters operate on an entirely different playing field. Their impact comes from character design and voice acting.
This is the one who stood up!
Jedi Survivor suffers from the optional dialogification that rules so many AAA games these days. The plot moves at a snail's pace, and the slow crawl is made up for with sarcastic quote, humanizing, relationship building, attachment forming, sarcastic unquote, optional dialogue. This was fine and well a decade ago in Mass Effect, where you actually built relationships with your companions, who eventually gave you side missions, which unlocked their abilities, which influenced the gameplay, and created a natural flow for all the gameplay systems. But its execution in Jedi Survivor is formulaic and empty, and the best thing I can is that it lets you and skip rather than have to sit through the dialogue.
Some prospectors.
Your mother sucks cocks in hell.
Yes, I was thinking the same.
When the plot finally gets moving, the many Uncharted-like action sequences lack any weight or heft. I'd attribute this mostly to the janky animation. When you can Jedi flip and dash in the air like an Italian plumber in a cat suit, you forsake the fear of falling for the magic of movement. But save for a few traversal challenges isolated from the main game, Survivor doesn't squeeze the juice out of its movement. There's this one bit where you're fighting a giant mechanized drill and things are moving fast on screen, but really I'm not doing much more than pressing a button to jump and watching Gal Superman fly all over the place. It's one of the bigger set pieces in the whole game, but ends up being downright boring, pun not intended. The lightsaber still feels like a plastic glow stick, and the Empire must have developed a vaccine for your force powers because nearly everyone and everything short of a chicken is resistant to it. And even the chickens can knock you on your cheeks if they do a special red unblockable attack. Ooh, how ingenious, Mr. Survivor. Why, you're a gentleman and a scholar. Blah. It joins the ranks of God of War, Middle-earth Shadow Offs, and lesser games where the developers realized they hadn't built an efficient combat or stamina system but still wanted their souls like cake, and so decided to force the player to switch up their defenses with a tacky non-diegetic signal that screams, "You're playing a VIDEOGAME video game." See, very often enemies will glow red with shame for what a sham the red unblockable attacks are. In a better game, a la Lies of P, Sekiro, or Neo 2, the big red attacks aren't there just to make sure you're not dozing off at the controls. They're essentially an opportunity that the player can capitalize on via a parry to deal stamina or posture damage, or choose to dodge away as a safer but less effective option. It's a choice, and when executed perfectly, works to the player's favor. In Jedi Survivor, there is no such choice. You wail on the enemy, are compelled to dodge when you see the red flash like a traumatized Pavlov's dog seeing a raised hand, and then get back to wailing on the enemy with your LED-infused Weed Whacker. It's an interruption that doesn't actually affect the fight at all, it just awkwardly pauses the flow of it, much like the menstrual cycle of an Ewok on birth control. It's not just the gameplay that suffers from the open worldification of the planets. The art direction is a downgrade as well. I liked the art direction and the linearity of the first game, especially the first planet you visit, which had an open grassy wetland with craggy terrain and monsters lurking below your feet like a sun near Skull Island. The home of the aforementioned A-Team Gothwoman, a chalk red desert, also left an impression slightly more residual than a cat burglar's fingerprints. The bright green colors of its native enemies juxtaposed well with the sober red dunes. In contrast, the enemies, fauna, and planets of Jedi Survivor are downright forgettable. Not only are the majority of the enemies your standard humanoid raiders and stormtroopers, but many of the fauna blur together in my memory just as well as they blend into the environment. Grey and brown tones are common among the majority of them, and few have a memorable design. The planets are fewer in number, and the environments are cliched tropes you've seen a dozen times before. Orange desert, green forest, dark city. It's as if they fired the art director and replaced them with General Generic and Captain Conventional. I'm surprised they resisted the urge for a snow planet, maybe because they already checked that box in the prequel.
There's nothing to see here. Your eyes must be playing tricks on you.
There's nothing to see here. My eyes must be playing tricks on me.
I'd also like to nominate Jedi: Survivor for the worst collectible list of all time. Soon after booting up the game, I found a high-tech chest and opened it to find a beard. Sorry, was there a Manscaped sponsorship in that chest, or is Cal wearing a glue-on beard? It's a little gamey and betrays the game's otherwise stoic tone, but it's not half as bad as the other collectibles you're expected to collect. Rocks, USBs, scrolls. These are the knickknacks of a homeless veteran with dirt on the Empire, not a Jedi Knight. You'd think you'd be able to at least access the USBs for audio-visual logs or read the scrolls for load breadcrumbs or something useful, but no. They instead serve as currencies to trade at vendors for pointless things such as paint jobs and tiny metal bits for your droid or lightsaber, which occupies 8 pixels worth of your screen at any moment and is constantly wobbling back and forth like a drunk Ewok celebrating a surprise pregnancy. I'm going to be honest, Jedi Survivor. As far as collectibles go, I hate you so much. It's so rude. It's so disrespectful of my time. Whoever thought this busy work was a fun idea probably also enjoys keeping a booger collection on their wall and cataloging them by color and size. Speaking of color and size, there's also a gardening minigame on the roof of the cantina for some reason, which comes with another 150 odd collectible seeds. More is not always more, Jedi Survivor. You're just throwing shit at the wall expecting some of it to stick, but I don't care whether the shit sticks or slithers to the ground. I like my floors and walls shitless. If you try to be everything to appeal to everyone, you end up being nothing and having no identity. I do think the card game in the cantina is done well, and so is the fishing minigame, because there is no fishing minigame. All you have to do is find the Scottish shrimp pirate, which you'll do anyway while exploring the map, listen to a quick, entertaining excerpt of his life story, and watch the bugger fish for you. That's it. All it took was a little restraint for it to be distinctively good relative to the rest of the game, and even among other games' fishing minigames, because it's not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's simple. No mas, no fuss. And to contextualize the size of the planets, you find the fishermen twice on one planet and another 10 of the remaining 12 on the same big planet, where you spend the majority of your playtime collecting bits and bobs. This lopsided balance of the planets makes the game feel less like a galactic trot and more like a staycation cleaning up after a hoarder. Levels in general have a weird geometry to them, so you'll be clipping in and out of stuff like a Skywalker with no etiquette at an Ewok orgy. One time I was able to climb up a short hill by jumping on rocky outcrops, but had to reload my save because a big warning popped up on my screen that said I might be breaking the game. So there's not much commitment to the open part of open world. In which case, it's fine to be a Metroidvania where you're meant to return to earlier levels with new abilities, but cross-pollinating an open world game with the Metroidvania is like building a mall where you have to find the keys to the CVS in the parking garage, only to unlock it and realize that everything is locked behind glass cabinets and there's 10 new keys hidden in the food court. Instead of opening up entirely new areas like in a traditional Metroidvania, the new abilities tend to just unlock tiny pieces of the map that have been carved out and set aside for a single chest or rock, which again can be fine, but not when there's literally hundreds of those splattered across the map with no rhyme or reason that are impossible for a player to keep track of. The map does mark locked or closed off paths with red icons, but the second you unlock an ability for them, they all turn green simultaneously, rendering it completely useless in practice. It's impossible for me to know which paths out of a few dozen I've taken before and which I haven't. And these easily numbered upwards of 100 for me, even though I took my time exploring and cleaning the streets like a good little star citizen. There's even an option in the map to turn these icons off, so I assumed the devs were aware this clutter would be a problem, but shrugged and called it a day.
Oh, just barely missed me. No. Come on, hit me again. Yeah, beat that floor up. Come on, you can do it. Come back and hit me. There you go. Yeah, do a big red. Oh, you missed me again. Oh.
All in all, I enjoyed Jedi Survivor most when I had earbuds in listening to a podcast with the difficulty turned all the way down. I think it does some important things worse than its prequel, level design and art direction primarily, and a few things better. I liked gun stance. I'd pair it with the red wine and Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, or Bad Friends, or any friends-based podcast, so you can sit back and enjoy a coat of Star Wars paint thrown on a mediocre but serviceable Assassin's Creed type experience.
2 out of 5.
I wish I could be a fearless warrior like you, but I can't. So I'm glad you're around.
3 out of 5.